Hello, and welcome back to another episode. What a week. What a week it has been to the day since the release of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. What a game. What a fantastic game this thing is. It's completely blown all of my expectations, all of my hopes, in fact, for a sequel to Breath of the Wild out of the water. And today I just want to quickly talk about one aspect of this game that I think underpins and highlights the genius of this as a follow-up to Breath of the Wild. For years now, people have been saying, why is it taking so long? You're just reusing the same map. The Ocarina of Time into Majora's Mask was, 2 years? And that reused similar assets and remixed things, but it didn't take 7 years to develop. This thing, however, this game is such a... I've heard people say it's not so much a revolution like Breath of the Wild was. It's a renaissance. It's a synthesis of ideas from the player base interacting with Breath of the Wild, from rejected design ideas for Breath of the Wild, and presumably ideas that the development team were coming up with towards the end of the development of that game that they wanted to push further. And the thing I'm most intrigued by in this game is their response to probably the biggest criticism that people had of Breath of the Wild, and that was the destructible weapons. Yeah, exactly. I understand why lots of people didn't like destructible weapons in the first game. I actually quite like the concept, in so much as it encourages you to experiment. You need to have a range of weapons on you. You need to be open to using weapons that you wouldn't normally want to use. So going from a sword to a spear, to bow and arrow, to an axe. All of this sort of stuff encourages flexibility and I imagine they were hoping creativity and play in the game. But for me, it also had the side effect, unfortunately, I think for a lot of other people as well, of making it so that actually in Breath of the Wild, I had maybe 2/3, even 3/4 of particularly my weapons storage, was just weapons that were high power weapons that I just didn't want to use yet. I'll hold on to them until the next monster, until round the corner, until I come across the next threat. This one isn't the one to use it on. So I kept on using low weapons or weapons that I felt were more disposable, and kept on holding on to, knights, claymores, and all that kind of thing, and elemental weapons for a later time that never quite came. And so I was only really using about a quarter of that inventory, and that inventory wasn't even being turned over and explored in a way that presumably the game design was trying to encourage you to do by breaking those weapons relatively frequently. And so I'm astonished by, and I'm delighted by the fact that Nintendo's response to this problem, the weapons keep breaking, what shall we do? Well, they said, let's break them all. Let's break all of them. Let's decay every single weapon in Hyrule. And that's genius. It's just so clever, because it means that with these decayed bases of weapons and the fuse system, you're constantly experimenting with things that you can attach to these rusty swords and spears and axes. You're running through those combinations quite frequently, but you can get a sense of what you like to combine. And that makes you more inclined to go and attack the hard monsters, because they're going to drop cool horns and tails and other bits that you can use on your weapons. The inclusion of the elemental properties of the rubies and the sapphires, etc., which was hinted at in Breath of the Wild in the jewelry in Gerudo Town, I think, now comes to the fore and allows you to create elemental weapons that aren't just imbued with, say, a fire property that might keep you warm like a sword. Instead, you can make them for yourself. And that cycle of make, experiment, break, and then crucially combat and harvest new materials to experiment with is a it's fun, it's addictive, it's also as well a what's the word? It's the fruition. It's the full expression of that breakable weapons philosophy that they had in Breath of the Wild. Personally, I would have been tempted to go down the Skyrim route, or down the Elder Scrolls route, and just have weapons be what they are, and you can upgrade them, sure, at blacksmiths, etc. But don't break them, because people kept them. People weren't happy with that. But instead, Nintendo said, "Nope, we're going to break everything." and this is why I think it took so long, is that they were being radical and creative and so I imagine it must have been so exciting to work on these different systems, because obviously we have the broken weapons. This leads into the whole concept of, with the fusing, a sort of a chemistry system, naming every combination, giving these things weapon sort of fuse attack values. The fact that things like butter blades exist is just it's delightful, it's exciting, it gets you it's that thing of what happens when you put these two different coloured liquids together. What happens next? It's that basic alchemical childlike curiosity that they've tapped into, that spreads throughout the whole game. And then when you combine that with the rewind or recall function, and of course with the Ultra Hand being able to build weird and wonderful concoctions and constructs, and even make really janky things like this bike that that we put together a couple of nights ago. It actually became more of a car, where we had to sort of balance out the corners that didn't have wheels with two little wooden wheels. And then, of course, that evening when I was going to sleep, I thought, oh, we should have put the big wheels on the back and the two little wooden wheels on the front. Oh, yeah, that would have made more sense. But that's not the point. The point is to mess about with the jank and to create and to have fun. And I feel as though this also connects in with things like Nintendo Labo, the cardboard construction idea that they had a few years ago for Switch, and a general desire to help you have more fun in the game that has led to this. I mean, never mind the other stuff. It's more cinematic in terms of storytelling. The story is much, I think, better and deeper. The characters are more interesting. The world is more populated by interesting characters. There are characters in this game who are actually proactive and making a better world for themselves after the events of Breath of the Wild. They've improved on everything, but at its core, at its heart, Tears of the Kingdom is incredible because they upended that question of destructible weapons. Let's destroy them all. Let's see what happens next. It's so good. So good. We're loving it. I say we, I mean, of course, me and my lovely wife, Mrs. Soup. We're playing of an evening for the most part, sometimes lunch breaks during the day, but after work. And we're just loving it. It's just fantastic. And everyone I know is loving it. It's really good talking with old high school buddies about this game and remembering what it was like playing Ocarina of Time and other Zelda games, and now how that compares to this moment playing Tears of the Kingdom for the first time. It's just so good. So good. And as I say, at its heart, that bold decision, which I think just underscores why Nintendo rightly are never content, for the most part, to do the same thing twice. And I admire that. Anyway, guys, how are you finding the game? What do you think? Comment below, let me know. I'm going to edit this and get back to playing as soon as she gets home. And hopefully play all weekend. Until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.